Hey everybody, we are live. It's Friday. We have another Inkarnate live stream today. We're going to be doing part 5 of our epic mountain city. Just so you know, this is going to be the last live stream for the year. Looks like there's going to be some holidays coming up, so I'm wishing all of you happy holidays and have a good time with your families, whatever you're going to be celebrating and doing together. And we're going to have this week off, so don't expect any content of the holiday week. So we'll be seeing you all next month or next year for new content. So let's just jump right into it. The focus of these streams in this series has mostly been on how to use the tool when creating a city, but I don't really mention a whole lot about how I come about making my lore and stuff like that in the creating an epic fantasy world stream. I create the landscape first to create the lore, and I have kind of a similar process when putting together the city, though it's always nice to have just a little bit of like base lore before you start putting the city together. I had a little bit of base lore when I first started, but it wasn't a whole lot. And so I'm going to put a lot more lore into this stream, how I kind of get the process of creating that lore, and we can kind of enjoy that together. If people have ideas about lore, feel free to also share that in the chat, because I kind of feel like the whole point of these streams is to kind of learn from each other and to kind of figure out like doing things together in like a communal way. So I enjoy that part. And the focus on the stream besides lore is we're going to be creating the elite and the parliament districts. The elite, or where the wealthy elves, or what I call the elder folk or elder kind, they live in the elite section, and there's a parliament section as well. And the parliament's going to have three sections or factions. And Parliament is where the city administration takes place, and there are three factions that work within that Parliament. So I'll start with some of the lore with the city parts that we've already made. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that, open up my city lore section here. And the first place that you start in the city, and I had mentioned, was the Rust Boroughs, or the mining district. That's this district right here, and it's at the base of the mountain. It's always generally in the shadow of the mountain, and so it has a negative connotation in the city. It's kind of a dark and kind of grimy, a polluted place, and the dwarves live in the shadow of the mountain in the polluted rust boroughs from all the smoke and the ash from all the smithing and everything that's taking place there. And there's not a lot of strong wind to blow that pollution away because it's caught in the shadow of the mountain. And so that's kind of an important place. So all of the dwarves live there. They toil in the innards of the mountain, mining the precious ore that makes this city run via trade and smith works, because there isn't a lot of crops. If you notice with this city, there isn't a lot of room for crops and things like that. And so the food is going to have to come from somewhere. And the food is going to come from trade, and there'll probably be some farming and some fishing and stuff, but it might not be enough to feed the whole city. Remember, it is an epic city. So we have these rust boroughs, and when I'm trying to figure out a lot of my lore, there's kind of a trick that I have, and that is that my lore and my overstoring lore of a city or any location should be conflict. It's always important to have some kind of conflict, whether it's between different groups and factions. It could be a class struggle. It could be a struggle between different races. It could be a crime that's taking place in a city. It's being invaded by monsters. Whatever it is, conflict is really what helps to make lore pop out. And we're going to be adding in conflict between the three factions that exist within this city. And one of those factions is the dwarves that live in the mining district. They're kind of an underclass that are kind of been forgotten by the elites of the city, even though they do most of the work, and they don't just get much of the benefits of that work that they're doing. But that's going to be our rust boroughs. And then we'll go ahead and move on to our other districts that we made here, the temple district over here, which is basically where our religion takes place. And the way that I go about religion, I've mentioned this in other streams, is the lore that I get that comes from the environment around it. You notice that there's a lot of water in this area. There's a reservoir up here at the top that holds a lot of water. You have these waterfalls right here. Water plays a huge role in the city lore. And so the lord of, or the god that these people worship here, or at least some of the people worship, the people in Rustborough might have their own gods, like a dwarven god of ore and stone smithing and work. Throm, I think, was a good name that I wanted to have, Throm. So they worship their own god. But this god, particular water god, the lord of the waters, Theron Finfolk, who comes to the city on pilgrimage to give its bounty. That's the water. And so they worship the water because that's where they get a lot of their life. Because wherever there's water, there is life. And that's important. And this temple is well funded by the elites, these elderkin or the elves, even when other sections of the city are falling into ruin. So it's also said that the Lord of Waters, Theron Finfolk, spirit also resides within the temple's waters. So if you look carefully here, we put a little temple, in our temple we put some waters that the adherents to this religion go and get baptized, and there's a statue of that water god in the center of the water there. So kind of important part of the lore, and you can see that there's also these where the priests and acolytes and other such functionaries live to kind of keep this temple going. Remember, it is well funded by the elites, even though other parts of the infrastructure of the city are kind of falling into ruin. Much of the elites have kind of become disconnected from reality, living high up in their towers over here in this section of the city, and they're kind of disconnected. They don't have a lot of the same troubles that much of the city occupants have, and so they don't understand what people are dealing with. And this kind of puts the city into ruin because of the negligence of the city elites. So after we had our water temple here, we also have some other sections. We created this grand gate right here with switchbacks, and I gave a special name for that one specifically because I felt like it would be important to give me 1 second here, turn this off here. Right here we have the Gate of Sorrows. And the Gate of Sorrows is basically this gate right here, this series of stone switchbacks that goes up and forth. It's great as a defensive position as people are going up these windy switchbacks. They're prone to being attacked, especially when their dominant sword hand is where their shield arm is not facing towards the upper switchback, which leaves them vulnerable. But this Gate of Sorrows is important. It's remembered by the dwarves as the Gate of Sorrows because these stone switchbacks are soaked with the blood of many fallen dwarves who fought against the prefects. The prefects are the city's brutal enforcers. They basically enforce the city rules, and they pretty much keep the dwarves in line, keeping them to keep toiling and doing their work and to not really step out of line, basically. And we're going to create that prefect section basically today, and we're going to put that next to the elites. Because, or I don't think we're making the prefect, sorry, the parliament, but we will touch base on some of the prefect as well. So I'll go ahead and back into the city lore here. There's a couple more items with some lore. We'll add those real quick, and then we'll kind of move on to the city building part because I don't want to stray too far away from the actual using the tool part. I just wanted to talk about the lore and kind of put it together. Remember, the big trick to lore is making sure that you have conflict. And so you can see here that we have some conflict going on between these different factions and trying to gain control of the city. Some factions trying to keep the status quo as it is. Other factions are trying to better the living conditions of the miners and the other workers that live in the city. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next part here. We had our Gate of Sorrows. And then we also have Finfolk Falls. We made this in the last episode right here. It's an effigy, a stone effigy of that water god, Theron Finfolk. It was created by a great dwarven sculptor called Thran Stonevane. So they were a great stonesmith, and they helped to build this, well, obviously with the help of many other dwarven workers as well. They didn't obviously do all the chiseling of the stone themselves. But this large stone sentinel basically sits at the base of the mountain, and then the reservoir, some of the water and the underwater works of the city, which I'm thinking in another stream we might actually make the under part of the city. The water flows from the mouth and the beard of the statue down into this giant lake that's down here at the bottom. So the Finfolk Falls is kind of an important section within the city. Often the dwarves of Rustborough will sit at the water gate, or the gate of the water, or water door, whatever it is you want to call this gate down here at the beginning of the city. They'll sit here and kind of stare at the falls when they get a chance to kind of look and admire the falls, being some pride in the dwarven, showing pride in the dwarven stonesmith work there. I think that's kind of an important part of the city. Let's go ahead, and I think that's enough lore for now outside of doing the, hold on 1 second here. I named two groups Finfolk. My mistake there. Let's go into the elite district right here. And we'll do a little bit of lore. It's the elite district, or called Gilded Heights or the Golden Heights, obviously because gilded being gold. And so it's self-proclaimed nobles, but often called Hobnob Heights by the dwarves of Rustborough. The elites and the elder can control much of the city's purse strings. Their minds are more focused in the stars than in the city's actual maintenance. They're disconnected from reality, and so they're more focused on kind of barricading themselves within their own little district where they have food, water, and a lovely living conditions up here at the top, the highest point of the city. And they're just kind of disconnected from reality. And so much of the time in Parliament, they're passing resolutions and things that are more focused on keeping the Temple district in repair, focusing on keeping their own districts in repair, giving funds to the prefect and the Parliament sections. But much of the other parts of the city are fallen into ruin. They're not focusing at all on giving funds and passing resolutions that will help the city's residents. So you can see that there's a very clear conflict between the various groups within the city. So we're going to be making this elite district today, but we'll also make the Parliament as well. And I have just a little bit more lore with that, and we'll kind of go over that lore. The Parliament district, this is where the three factions sit together and kind of parlay with each other, hence Parliament district, which is city administration. Much of the affairs of the city are done here. There are three factions within the Parliament: the Stonecutters Guild, which you could guess is where the Rustborough dwarves live. And then you also have the Azul Ministry, which is also the name of our water temple, the district. The Azul Ministry, it's the name of the religion that exists within the city, or at least one religion. There are probably smaller ones scattered throughout the city as well. And then there's also the nobles, the self-proclaimed nobles. Though fewer in number, they have given themselves, through votes, a much larger share of votes within Parliament. So much of their voting power far exceeds the voting power of the other factions. And so they have this majority, this kind of, or not majority, but they have this kind of minority rule within the Parliament, which further cements the conflict within the city. All right, that is a lot of lore right there. Let's go ahead and get into the building part. Thanks for bearing with me on that. If you guys also have lore ideas or whatever, I'm curious to see how other people also kind of come up with their lore. I think it's important to kind of figure out how to do that. So let's go ahead and jump into the city building section of it. We did a solid 10, 15 minutes of lore. Let's go over to the elite district here. Now, with the lore that I have, there's a couple things that were important, right? I had mentioned their minds are set in the stars. So maybe we want to throw in, besides some lavished estates at the top of this place, we also want to add like an observatory where they can go look at the stars. They're more focused on, the secrets of the stars unfold than they are from the real problems on the ground. And that's where a lot of that disconnect comes from as well. So let's go ahead and put that together. One of the first things I might want to do is maybe make some kind of observatory. And it's called the Gilded Heights, so it only makes sense to probably use maybe some kind of golden color roofing for the buildings here. And I want maybe some of those buildings will be fortified as well, so that way they're well protected from any faction that might decide to revolt and go with their pitchforks and start heading towards that district. And so fortified areas are great. So an observatory of some time is not a bad idea. There isn't an observatory that I know of stamped, and I'm going to run over here as well to get the scale correct, because what happens is that sometimes when I'm working on a stamp, I might get the scale wrong. And so I'll make sure I grab a stamp and just kind of scale it up. It's an observatory, so it can be a little bit bigger, but don't make it too big. I'd mentioned this problem that you run into. The line work of the stamps get absolutely massive, and then that just looks really weird. It doesn't keep to the size of the other line work. So just remember to keep the scales relatively close to each other instead of exaggerating scales. If there's a bigger stamp that you want to add that you have in fantasy or in the watercolor city style, I recommend you actually go over to watercolor battle maps, and in that way you could keep the line thickness down because it's made with the same kind of art style, but they're at different scales. So just remember to use that. So let's make that observatory. Let's go back over to the elite district. And I'm going to place it in a section that's just right off to the side here, like right on top of here. For some reason, I've got a yellow layer shadow for some reason. I'm going to put it right here along the wall. And remember this cool little trick that I had mentioned before is using platforms. You see these little, these kind of grayish little lines right here? These are called platforms, and they work really well for creating height. And what's important is if you have an observatory, you would expect it to be at the highest location in an area because you want to get the best unobstructed view of the stars. And so if we create a series of platforms that kind of lead up to the observatory, it will create this illusion that there is some height there. So we'll use the line tool, and there's something called platforms, and we'll just go like this across, just like that. You see it's facing the wrong way. You just go to flip like this, and you can create your first platform kind of going up to it right along our faux road right here. If we want, we can even put another one on there. Just put another one, just copy, paste, and just put it right on top right here. If those nodes are in the, if it's too big, then just build another one, go across like this, and we can kind of create a series of steps that kind of lead up to the observatory. Again, we want to create this illusion of height. This already kind of gives it that sense of height. So now we have this nice observatory here. But what I don't see is some kind of telescope. So what we can do is go over to watercolor battle maps. Remember, I was just saying that these kind of work together. You can go to watercolor battle maps, and I do believe there is a telescope. Let me type in telescope. Does it there? Oh, I'm still in cities, my bad. Watercolor battle map. Sorry about that. There is our telescope. Perfect. And what I'll do is I'll place it on top like this. I can place it maybe like this, I think should be okay. Kind of facing outward. And then what I'll do is it looks kind of odd like that. And so I'll place another stamp on top of it, another roof stamp, just to kind of hide that. So I'll go back to watercolor cities here. And there should be a circular orange roof that I can just take and just kind of use that. In fact, we'll use this golden one right here because remember, it is kind of the golden height. So I'll just put that right on top of that. And so it kind of looks like it's a shiny golden roof. And then underneath the roof is where that, underneath that section is where that thing is. Unfortunately, there's some of these sticks that kind of stick out that kind of look, or the tripod that's holding it up, that will kind of be there. And there's not much that I can really do about it. I could hide it with clipping masks. Is there nothing else that's here? I could hide it with clipping masks. Check out this. This is kind of a power tip here for power users. You can hide stuff using clipping masks. Pretty cool trick. I'll show you how to do that. We'll go over to here, and we're going to turn stroke, turn fill. And when you do choose fill, choose clipping mask. That's that third option right here. And then we'll choose paint, or you can use the pen. It's up to you. And let's just see if I can get this to work. We're just going to hide that piece right there. Oop, I don't think it worked. We'll try it again. It might have been too big, but it's a nice little detail. There we go. And then I'll just place that one up a layer and see if I can put it above it. Nope, there's shadows that make it not work. Oops, well, that won't do. Then this is just the way it will be. You can also make your own with the line tool, but for now, I think this will do. You can also just move it more this way if you don't want to have it too much. There we go. Okay. So the first major building is put. And now what we can do is make a series of buildings that ring around the road. And then we'll put some gardens and like a pond or a lake that's going to be in there as well. Because when I think of elite, it's like there's fewer of them. But at the same time, they're not crammed together like a slum. And so there's some space to add in gardens, lawns, to add in pools, fountains, walkways. All of those things I kind of associate with an elite section. Okay. And so what we'll do is there should be some of these more elite-like buildings. And I can't remember what they're called. I don't remember if it's elite or I think they're called noble. Let's type in noble. Okay. So you have these golden noble buildings. These are perfect. We're going to use these. And again, I'm going to check scale just to be sure. I'm always checking for scale. I should take one of those stamps and move it over there instead of having to scroll over every time. Kind of a mistake there. Let's go ahead and put in a larger building here. Let's scale them up just a little bit bigger. I want them to be very large and kind of lavished, and the line work is not too big. And I'm going to space them out because I want to create room. I want to create room for gardens and some lawns and things like that to go in there. So let's make sure that we do that. We'll turn off that shadow here. There's going to be enough room here for some grass and gardens. Let's put another one right here. And we'll just line them up. And they don't have to be perfectly aligned. Sometimes you can have two of the golden buildings closer together. Don't all of them having to be perfectly spaced apart. Too much symmetry looks bad. So it's always nice to throw in just a little bit of asymmetry in there. That's kind of an important thing that I like to have in there. Okay, let's put one right here. And let's just keep going. Right here, I think I'm going to put like a barracks or something. So I probably won't use a golden building right here. This will be where soldiery go, and the soldiers are there to basically man the gate here. And I might even have another section down here where they live. So we'll have like a barracks over here, and then maybe some permanent residence for officers or a private retinue to live that's going to protect. Hey, first-time chatters, both of you, Cruel Style and Schmandolf. Glad that you're here. All right, so let's keep adding these buildings in here, these elite buildings. That one's a little too big, and what's nice, too, is to throw varying sizes. So I'll take this medium-sized ones as well, scale it down a little bit, and that way I'll have some different variety in the buildings as well. Let's put some right here. Oops, accidentally got that layer shadow on. I'm not sure why that's on, if that's a bug or what. Turn that off. There we go. Okay, cool. Here we go. And make sure that you're paying attention to where your staircases are, because it would be really weird if you had a staircase that was kind of facing towards the wall and not towards the road that would allow you access to get into the house. So just kind of remember where the staircases are. That way you won't make that mistake. And then, of course, you should always make some kind of outbuildings or what's called auxiliary buildings. Usually there's some other little tiny buildings that are outside, and those could be the buildings where the servant's quarter is. It could be a stable for the horse of the Lord. It could be an outhouse, whatever it might be, right? There's these auxiliary buildings. So what I'll do is to show the difference is I'll use smaller yellow buildings to kind of represent these auxiliary buildings. And I don't want to add too many of these yellow buildings because, again, I want room for my grass and my lawns and my pond and all that other stuff. So just throw in just a couple of these medium-sized ones in there for those auxiliary buildings. Some here and here. This will be nice. And this is the same technique that I use for building every district. You start with the larger stamps first. That's why I made the observatory, the medium-sized stamps, and then the smaller stamps. And the reason why I do that is so that it fills up more space and the work process feels like you're getting more done. If you start with the smallest things first, it's going to feel like you're taking forever and not getting much done. So start with big and move your way down. Okay? Fill in with the smaller stuff once you've gotten the bigger stuff in. That's kind of the big trick that I recommend. Let's throw in just a couple more auxiliary buildings and then we'll kind of move on to adding the last bits to in here, which are I want to have some shack-like buildings that represent maybe where the servants' quarters might be. So I'll just throw a couple of them. I'm going to make the wood a little bit darker because the buildings are pretty bright. And so we'll do some contrast in here by throwing in these ones. I'm not sure why my layer shadow is always on. I might have to change that and turn it off. Okay, let's put in some servants' quarters there. Let's put one at the edge over here. Put a couple over here. Okay. Let's put a couple over here. And in fact, what's nice to do is to use some repetitive buildings using the same. So I could go in like here and just use this same building twice in a row like this. Some repetition is good because you want some repetition to contrast against the lack of repetition that you have. Because notice how I've spread these out at various lengths and stuff. Some repetition helps to contrast against the non-repetitive elements within that district. So it's good to have both. Have some repetition and then some not. So we'll place a couple here as well. These are a couple buildings just along the outside here. They're a little crooked, so I better turn off that random rotate. Let's rotate them all, making sure they're facing around the same direction here. Okay, let me see, did I miss any? Oh, this building over here probably needs a couple of them. Let's put a few there. Let's put it right here. Oh, I want to put a lawn there, actually, so I'll move that. Okay, there we go. Those are done. Okay, now let's make some grass areas, right, which kind of makes sense. So what I'll end up doing is the shape tool, and I'm going to select this section right here. I've chosen the stamp is a hedge, so that's going to frame or line the grass area, and I've chosen a grass fill. I'll place down one real quick using the shape, using this shape tool, and you'll see that I have some hedge here. You might want to bring the size down, and we'll bring the texture scale down so it kind of fits the scale. And then you can copy and paste these nice little lawns right against, copy and paste them right into place, right next to the buildings here. So you have these nice grass. It doesn't have to all be these shapes. You can change the shape of the grass to be whatever you want. So if I want, I can go in here and use the pen, and I can create a more unique shape that fits to this area. Okay? So you can use interesting shapes to kind of put it all together. So I can go in like this and then create a unique type of grass area. Same thing here. I can go in, create this nice grass area. Okay, cool. So you're getting the general idea on how I kind of put the grass elements in there. These are kind of close together, so I want to make sure that I create some room for moving around. So I'll put that there. That could be a caretaker for that garden over there. And then let's also move this over to here, and then we'll put another lawn over here. Let's just copy and paste it over to here. I think that should fit. Nope, a little too big. Let's just use the pen then. That will fit into the shape here just fine. Okay, enter. There you go. Another grass line there. Great. Okay, let's add in the guard station. So we could put like a guarded building just right here, up against here along the road here, and then we can put another one as well. You know, I keep getting this mistake with the layer shadows, and so what I'm going to end up doing now is just going to go into my layer settings here. I'm going to go to my layer shadows, and I'm just going to turn off the layer shadows altogether because they are driving me bonkers. I have to keep editing and changing it every time. Okay. All right. There are some other things that I want to do as well. I want to go ahead and go back here. Now I have this nice fortified building right here. I'm going to put the door to that fortified building just right here, right next to the door. And then we'll add one more fortified building as well, just right here, a smaller one. Okay, so now we have our two fortified buildings here. Great, you can even put it underneath right here to make it look like it's even kind of attached to it if you wanted to. That'd be kind of nice. Let's also make sure the door is facing the right way. And we'll push this down a layer. There we go. Perfect. So you have these buildings right here. That's great. Okay. Let's take a step back and kind of look how the district looks so far. We're going to save when we got a couple hundred changes there. So, and we'll keep adding in some more buildings, and we'll follow the same process that we've been doing. And then we'll add in that pond and then all the little details that kind of come with it. So I'm noticing that there's still plenty of room for more elite buildings. So let's just keep throwing in more buildings. Let's put one over here. I think this one should go good right here. Just remember that staircase is facing the right way. Let's rotate this. There we go. Make sure things are facing the right way. There's room over here for even more. Let's just keep going, adding in more space. We'll put one right there. Okay, great. All right. And then we'll keep adding in a couple more grass sections, I think. There we go. Press enter. There we go. All right. So we're kind of got that part together. I also want to continue with the Golden Heights. I feel like there's not enough of that feel to it. And so I'll use these same roofs right here, and I'm going to place them in certain locations just to create this continuity of color. And so I'll place these different shapes in these kind of areas right here, and I'll place them randomly on some parts of the building. And these can kind of represent like a gazebo on top of the building where they can kind of observe the stars, their own personal observatories. Place these here. And then if when I step back, that yellowish color should now be dominant within that area, that orangish color, sticking with the continuity there of that color, which is nice. And I can even put some on top, like one on top of this one on top of this one. I think that would look good there. Oh, one here. More little tiny observatories, personal observatories for the occupants. Remember, their focus, these elites are star-centric. They're focused on the skies and the stars. Their eyes are not to the earth and the problems of their city. And the city is falling to ruin because of their negligence and their disconnect from reality. That's where our conflict is, right there. Okay. All right. So what you can also do is we maybe want to give some more auxiliary buildings because I added in some more. So let's add some here. Let's go ahead and add another one here. This can be like the gate master's house. Another one here. And let's put a couple more right here. And then we're also going to add in some more details like crates and barrels. And the great place to put these would be right next to the shacks, right? Where you would expect the servants and stuff to be working and stuff. And so it kind of makes sense to put them there. So we'll scale these down and we're just going to place them kind of randomly around. Remember I said small, medium, large, or large, medium, and then small. That's kind of the order of operation that you go. Once you've added in the medium-sized shacks and everything, small houses and whatever, then you're going to go into the really tiny stuff like these crates and barrels. And just adds more details to it. Okay, put some here, along here. Put some back behind here. Of course, you expect some over here as well. All right, here, here, here. Okay, now those stairs are rather large. So I might want to add a different staircase. It's not going to be quite massive. So I'll put a little staircase and just kind of put it right here. Like that, kind of leads up to that. You can even have some right here if you wanted to make it more ornate, or just adding multiple entrances if you kind of wanted to have it more interesting. Like that, that's up to you. Though this one right here is the most important as it's access to the road, right? Like how is it they get up this like structure to get up there from the road? These ones can lead off elsewhere. It's up to you if you want to add those kind of things or not. Okay. Let's go ahead and add in the water part. So I want to add in some kind of water. And we could go several different theories about how we could go about this. We could use the mass tool. We could use the shape tool. We could use all kinds of things. Let's maybe use like a stroke that we could use for like the grassy parts of the water, and then a fill for the water parts. And what we'll use this time instead of a line is we'll use the brush. Okay, and we'll make a kind of an oblong shape for the lake, kind of like this, or pond. It's got to be a decent size. I don't want it to be absolutely massive to where it takes up the whole section, but I want it to be also be big enough to where you can be enjoyed. And so we'll bring this scale down right here, and you'll notice that there's some grass there with those roots. That's fine. We'll go into the grass texture here, and then we'll go ahead and apply it. Oopsie, put it to BG. Oopsie, that grass looks a little bright. I wonder if we could use a darker grass. Let's try that. Does that work better? Nope, the lighter one works a little bit better. Let's go into here. Might even use a different type of grass. This entire section can probably be some grass. You can put some more buildings in the center because there's not a lot there. I'm just not really happy with that part of it. So what we can do is let's lock this. And what we'll do is we'll put hedge surrounding that whole section. And so I'll go back. We'll go to the shape, pick the hedge, and I'll turn off the fill texture as I won't need it. And what I'll do is I'll go just all along the road here. I'm going to fill in the whole thing. This whole thing's going to be filled in. And remember, I locked that pond for a reason because I don't want to merge it with this shape. Okay. And now you have this nice shape here. And what I'll do is I'll kind of make sure that it's lined up properly. And then we'll use some portals to remove some sections of the hedge so that people can get inside of it. Okay, there we go. Let's go ahead and make sure that I only paint in where the hedge is at. And I still don't like that grass. I'm wondering if there is a different grass that I can use that has more artifacts. I think this one works fine. Let's go with this one. Let's grab the scale. Zoom in. Here we go. All right. Oh, I forgot. I got to scale down the texture. You notice how big those grass elements are? Those are huge. I don't want to do that. So I'll bring the grass texture down quite a bit. And I'm going to overlap. So good. Now I have some grass texture. Those artifacts in there work great to kind of represent grass. I'll throw that in there. And then we have our road texture, which I'll put back down over here like this. Just kind of go over the spots that I went over. There we go. Perfect. And then we'll use the shape tool. And we're going to go portals. So if you click the shape tool and then go all the way down right here to portals, then I can select the shape that I want. And then I can create a portal, an opening to it. And so it kind of makes sense to have a couple portals, a couple entrances leading into this nice kind of ritzy area. And so I'll kind of put some nice little entrances here. Let's put one here. I'm kind of putting them right in front of some of the houses. So it kind of makes sense to put them there where the access is. So I'll put one there. Let's put another one right here. And you can change the size with these square bars or grab the circular bar to just move it. Okay, so you'll see the differences there. Okay. Let's see here. Let's also have an entrance that goes in this way as well. There we go. Okay. So you see there's a lot of entrances to get into that area. And what we can do is we can throw in some trees and some bushes because it's a kind of a park. And so throwing in those elements might be helpful. So let's throw in a tree. And we can pick these tree clusters right here. These tree clusters work great. It's just less work for you. Instead of placing individual trees everywhere, these little clusters work great. And there is still individual trees within these as well if you want to do that. So this is a great set to work with. You can cover a lot more area with these. And so great places to kind of put trees are just right along the waterfront area. So along here. Let's put some along here as well. And there's even this one right here that kind of lines nicely. Right there, that looks nice. Okay. And then after I put those down, then I can go and choose like a bush that I want to use. Because if we're going to have a little bit of these trees, and it doesn't hurt to have some bushes down there as well. So I'll put just some bushes along here. And right now they're all the same size because I haven't changed the scale, but we will change the size of them. So I'll bring the scale down a little bit and then place some smaller variations as well. Remember that trick, small, medium, or big, small, medium, large, okay? And then we'll go brown even smaller. So to get some nice variations here. There's a nice little district that's kind of coming together. All right, we can even throw in like a dock and a little boat if you want to. Would be kind of nice. A little boat that can go out on the pond. Let me just get the scale right. That looks about the right size right there. And we'll put it right here. Oops, it needs to go above the layer. So up, there we go. And then let's put a dock as well. Let's just put a small one. I don't think we need a massive one. So we'll put a small dock just right here. Oop, I'll bring the scale down. A little too big, my mistake. There we go. A little dock right here goes right there. And we can even throw a couple other ones as well. One right here. Just right where the entrances are, so there's obvious access there. And let's throw another one over here. And then we can put a couple boats. And you know what might be nice is to add a little gazebo that's on the water. So we'll add that too. Let me lock that so I can't select that. And those are locked. Let's go ahead and create a little gazebo. The way we'll do this is very simple. We'll use this same shape right here with this grass-like cliff. But instead, for fill, I'm going to use grass instead. And then what I'll do is I'll build this nice perfect circle, just like that. And then you have this nice circle here. It looks like I need to invert the shape. We're going to put that in the center right there. And then we'll create like a little gazebo or a little place where people can kind of climb up and enjoy the look of the lake. And I think under elves, there's some nice platforms that you can use right here. Perfect. And so there's this little platform. We can just place this just right here, right on top. And then we'll also put a dock that gets to it. And since the stairs are right there, it only makes sense to put the dock to the access point of that gazebo. And then we'll put a boat right next to the dock as well. Okay. And if you want, we wanted to show that maybe there's some kind of gazebo there. So let's put some pillars to show that there's a roof. And I'll place maybe 4 pillars like this. And I'll make sure they're lined up properly. Okay, and those are kind of holding or supporting a roof that you can't see. Because I want people to be able to see what it is. It's kind of an observatory gazebo of some kind. In fact, I don't even care much for the pillars. We'll just remove them. I think it's just fine like that. Let's throw in some benches, as you would expect. So we got some benches here. In fact, I kind of like these elven ones. These are much prettier. Let's add these. And I'm not sure what's going on with that shadow here, so let's just turn those off. And let's just put some benches that are kind of facing towards the water, so you can kind of enjoy the atmosphere a little bit. There we go. Okay. And we can even put a fountain in there. Kind of makes sense. We're already in a pond, so adding in some kind of fountain probably wouldn't hurt. So let's throw in a fountain as well. There we go. Okay, let's take a step back and look at our elite district and how it's going. Yeah, overall, I'd say this is pretty good. We've added in our buildings. We've added in the various plants and grass and the observatory, all the different things that we want. We extracted from the lore that we created earlier in, I think, to kind of figure out how to put it all together. We are running short on time. We can at least get the Parliament building started, or we can just continue adding the last bit of things to the elite. I think we should just keep finishing up the elite for this stream, and then in the next one we can kind of do the other one. We spent a little time doing lore there. Let's just keep kind of adding some more details. One thing that you might expect is to have some flowers. So, and you know, you could also put these flowers in the lawn-like areas, like right here as well. So if you want, you can have some grass there. I can kind of piece these together, make these kind of small, and then make it kind of look like there are 4 corners here lined up to kind of create this flower section here. Kind of the details you can add in here. And then we can also throw in like a rando tree, copy paste, and put that right on top in the center there. We can put another tree like right here, or we can put a bush over here. Just take a bush, copy paste, put it right here. Oops, it needs to go on top. Oops, I think all of these are a layer up too high. So let's just select all from this style and we'll bring them down a layer. There we go, much better. And then one thing you can also do is put bushes in the corners as well. So I can take these and I can put these in these corners, and it will help to kind of highlight that they're the entrances, if that makes sense. So if I place these up a layer, copy and paste, I can put them in these corners, and it kind of adds as a nice kind of like shrubbed gate pole or whatever it might be. I can put those right there on the ends. It will help to accentuate the entrances, which will be nice. And then of course you can also put them in the corners of your, make it a little bit bigger, copy paste, you can put them in the corner, and this will also add further decoration to these lawn-like areas, which will add to it. These little details mean a lot. So when you get towards the end of finishing a district, you can get to that best part, which is adding all the details, and the details are what tell the story. As they say, the devil is in the details. So when you add in these little details, it's going to have a huge impact on the overall design of your map. So it's always nice to throw in these little tiny details like this. Sure, it's a little time consuming, but hey, as they say, Rome was not created in a day, right? Great cities take a great amount of time, and it's okay. Take your time, enjoy it. Whenever I rush a project, it always seems to go downhill. So I kind of take my time and enjoy it. I understand that a DM or a GM's life can be a little more hectic than that, so I totally understand. But kind of pacing yourself and relaxing and kind of going through each step in the process of city building is very helpful. So let's just keep adding these last bit of details in here. Really like those extra details. And then including in here too, we want to throw in some extra details in there. I think there could be some interesting things like some arches, a gate, some statues. All of those things are great to kind of add to it. Let's throw in an arch somewhere. Let's throw in, let's see, this big section right here, I think is good. We can throw in an arch right there. And then let's throw another arch right here. But that tree is kind of in the way, so I'll move the tree over to here, and I'll have it overlap there. Okay, and so you have, well, I don't like the arch there because there's not much room for people to walk. So that doesn't make sense to add that one there. Let's add the arch here, closer to the entrance, the main entrance to get into the elite district. That kind of makes the most sense. But we'll put another one there because they just look pretty. And then we can scatter around some statues. We might want to make some kind of path, perhaps. So we can use these. Let's see here. I do believe there's a road alpha. If you're not sure what a alpha is, alpha texture supports transparency. And so what I can do is kind of use these alpha textures to create this stone path, but it's not the same type of texture as the road. And so that's a nice little thing. And what I want it to do is I want it to be the same whitish color. So I'll just desaturate it and make it white. And then what I'll do is I'll bring the opacity down just a little bit and the size down, and we'll create a little path that goes around. So I got this little path. That's a little too much. Let's bring it down even more. Bring the scale down. There we go. And we'll create this little path that kind of goes from each section over to here and to this one, a little path that goes over to here through this little wooded section, and the path that kind of goes through here to this section as well. And then I can put some statues, and I can line the path with some bushes, all some nice little tricks that you can do there. Let's make sure that I have path going into here, to here, here. Okay. And then what I'll end up doing here is I'll take some bushes and I'll line the path with some bushes, and they always look really nice when I do this. So I just go in and just do some single clicks. And what I do is I won't have them be perfect, making a perfect line. I'll have them be separated by a couple. And so I do these inconsistent, non-pattern-like designs. And what this does is it kind of lines the path or frames it, and it looks more intriguing. It's a little too big still, I'd say. Let's bring the size down even more. And then we can kind of, let's also select it to where I can do a cool little trick here. You can go over to your placement, and we're going to go multiple. So I can place multiple. There we go. And now I can go in and drag multiple. Just remember, if you do these longer lines like this, make sure that you break them up at the end by putting some single ones from the distance. I try not to make it too perfect. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I got some that lining that. Great. Let's take a step back and look at it. Oh yeah, much, much better. Let's throw in some statues too, because I feel like, having a statue in a garden makes sense. Okay, let's see here. Ooh, here we go. Here's some. This is the same statue as the one we're using in the water temple, so it might not be a bad idea to throw in this statue here. Let's put it maybe along the path right here, and then I'll put some of the road being attached to that. And I think it's at a different layer, so I need to bring that up. There we go. It seems to be kind of hidden. Let's throw a series of statues that are along the path. Maybe one that's guarding the entrance here. And these statues can be of the most wealthiest of the elite that live in this area, as well as their god here. And then we'll take that same texture, and I make sure to put a little bit of that stone texture underneath of those statues. There we go. Okay. We're at 242 changes, a lot. I got a lot of that yellow in there, so I kind of like that. And one other thing that I might want to do just to give it a little bit more of a golden feel is I might even want to throw a light source on top of it. We'll make it a little bit brighter. Remember, it is called the Gilded District, and so it kind of makes sense that the sun is going to be reflecting off of all those golden shiny roofs, and so putting a little light source on top of it and just kind of bringing the opacity down a little bit so it doesn't look like there's just a pure light source there, and just right on top, and that section also being the highest point of the city, or one of the highest points of the city, will also seem like it's higher up because it's a little bit brighter. Okay, there we go. Let's go ahead and make that save. All right, it's too bad that these poor elven kind can't sympathize with the rest of the city's occupants being so detached from reality. But that's where the conflict is. And when I have my players first come onto the city, I'm going to make that conflict evident to my players by maybe creating a scene where the city's prefects are attacking most biasly towards a dwarven worker. And so when the players first arrive at the Finfolk Gate, they're going to see that bias in the prefects, and then that will kind of set the stage for the overall conflict in the city. And as my players are exploring the city, they're going to bump into more NPCs that are going to be asking them to join which faction or the other, and your players will have that choice whether they want to side with the elite and kind of keep the status quo, or if maybe they want to join in with the Temple District, the Azul Ministry. Will they side with the Azul Ministry, who's clearly in a pact with the Elite District, or will they side with the underdogs, the miners, the Dwarven, the Rustborough Dwarves? Will they sympathize with them? And so giving that option with the players, and of course this will influence their affinity. Are they going to be good? Are they going to be evil? And so I try to give those options there. I want my players to not be restricted by only doing good or bad. They can choose what they want, and they're going to do that anyway, no matter what you do, right? So we'll definitely be creating more episodes in the future for this series here. We got part 6 coming up next year. Remember, this is the last stream of the year. Much of the team is going to be off, so just kind of know that. But we're going to continue streams full steam ahead, and I'm sure some of you noticed we've been making a lot of shorts as well, and so we'll be adding that content when we come back as well. That way we can kind of please everybody, these longer form stream content as well as the shorter form time-lapse videos. So we'll be adding a lot of both. We just want to make sure that we cater to all of our viewers, and you can always let us know what kind of content that you want to see. That's up to you guys. So we'll definitely be continuing this next month or next year, actually. So happy holidays, everybody. Sorry we didn't get to the Parliament District in this one, but hey, there's always a lot to do, right, when it comes to city building. So in the next episode, please, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and healthy, and merry map making, okay? Thanks, everyone, for making it. Please take care, and I will see you all next year. Okay, everyone? Happy holidays, all right?